Dealing with toxic people can feel like walking through a maze blindfolded. You sense something's off, but you just can't put your finger on it. When it comes to narcissists, this confusion is even more intense because they don't always come across as obviously toxic at first. They can be charming, magnetic, and incredibly persuasive, making it hard to recognize the danger signs early on. But if you learn to spot those red flags quickly, you can save yourself a lot of emotional pain and protect your peace. So, let's talk about the behaviors that tend to define narcissists, the subtle and not so subtle ways they show their toxic nature. One of the biggest giveaways is their relentless self-centeredness. A narcissist's world revolves around themselves and their needs. Conversations will almost always circle back to their achievements, struggles, or feelings. It's exhausting because no matter what you say or how much you share, the focus never truly shifts away from them. This isn't just about being confident or self-assured. It's an extreme level of self-absorption that leaves little room for anyone else's experiences or emotions. When you try to express your feelings or concerns, you'll often find yourself dismissed or minimized, as if your perspective doesn't really matter. Lack of empathy is another core trait. Narcissists struggle, or outright refuse, to put themselves in your shoes. They don't genuinely care about how their words or actions affect you, because their emotional radar is tuned almost exclusively to their own benefit. This means, when you're hurting, confused, or struggling, they may respond with cold indifference or even use your vulnerability against you. It's like they have this emotional wall that protects them from caring too much, which allows them to act selfishly, without remorse. The need for constant admiration and validation is also a huge clue. Narcissists thrive on praise and attention. They want to be seen as special, superior, and envied. This craving for admiration drives much of their behavior, whether it's exaggerating their accomplishments or subtly putting others down to elevate themselves. It's not just about ego, it's about feeding a deep insecurity that they mask behind a facade of confidence. You might notice they fish for compliments or react badly if they don't get the validation they crave. Another hallmark is a sense of entitlement. Narcissists believe they deserve special treatment or privileges, often without earning them. They expect others to bend to their will, put their needs above all else, and accommodate their demands without question. This sense of entitlement can come across as arrogance or rudeness, but it's really about a distorted belief that rules don't apply to them. When you stand up for yourself or say no, they might lash out or try to guilt-trip you into compliance. All these behaviors can be tricky to spot because narcissists are often skilled at hiding their worst traits behind charm or charisma. They can be magnetic and persuasive, making it tempting to ignore warning signs or rationalize their actions. But understanding these patterns early is crucial because they slowly chip away at your confidence and emotional health. Now, once you start recognizing these red flags, the next thing you might notice is how they manipulate and control you. This is where things get even more complicated. Narcissists are masters at emotional manipulation, and it's usually subtle at first, so subtle that you might question your own judgment or feel like you're overreacting. One of the most common tactics is gaslighting. This is when the narcissist twists facts, denies things they said or did, or outright lies to make you doubt your memory or sanity. For example, if you call them out on hurtful behavior, they might say, "You're too sensitive," or "That never happened, you're imagining things." This constant invalidation wears down your self-trust and leaves you confused about what's real and what isn't. Over time, gaslighting can make you feel like you're losing your grip on reality. Then there's love bombing, a tactic that seems kind and flattering but is actually a form of control. At the start of a relationship or interaction, a narcissist may overwhelm you with excessive attention, compliments, and affection. It feels amazing because you think you've found someone who truly values you. But this is usually a strategic move to hook you emotionally and gain your trust. Once they've secured your attention, the love bombing fades, replaced by neglect, criticism, or manipulation. It's a cycle designed to keep you off balance and desperate for their approval. Guilt tripping is another weapon in their arsenal. When you try to set boundaries or express discomfort, they may make you feel selfish or ungrateful. They might say things like, "After all I've done for you," or, "If you cared about me, you wouldn't say that." This tactic plays on your empathy and desire to avoid conflict, pressuring you into doing what they want even when it's harmful to you. The result is a toxic dynamic where your feelings are constantly sidelined to protect their ego. These patterns are not accidents. They are calculated moves to maintain power and control. The narcissist thrives on having you dependent on their approval or validation, and they work hard to keep you emotionally hooked. Recognizing these tactics is the first step in breaking free from their influence. It's important to remember that nobody deserves to be treated this way. The confusion, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion you might feel aren't your fault. Narcissists excel at disguising their toxicity, but once you learn to identify their behaviors and manipulation, you can start reclaiming your peace and confidence. Once you've recognized the toxic patterns and manipulation tactics, the next challenge is protecting your mental and emotional well-being. Setting boundaries with a narcissist isn't just a nice-to-have, it's an absolute must. But it's easier said than done, especially when you've been conditioned to prioritize their needs or feel guilty for standing up for yourself. The cower. Truth is, healthy boundaries are the foundation of any good relationship, but with a narcissist, they become your lifeline. Without clear limits, you risk getting swept up again in their emotional games, losing yourself in the process. Setting boundaries starts with knowing what you will and will not tolerate. It means defining your limits and communicating them calmly and firmly. You don't have to explain yourself extensively or justify why certain behaviors hurt you. Remember, you are not responsible for changing them or fixing their issues. Your responsibility is to protect your own peace and mental health. Sometimes a simple, "I'm not comfortable with that," or "I need some space right now," is enough to start drawing those lines. And when those boundaries are tested or ignored, it's essential to stand your ground consistently. At the same time, it's important to work on emotional detachment. That doesn't mean becoming cold or uncaring, but rather learning to separate your feelings from their toxic actions. Narcissists often thrive on emotional reactions. They want you to feel upset, guilty, or off balance because it gives them control. When you can observe their behavior without immediately absorbing the hurt or frustration, you regain power. You stop reacting impulsively and instead respond thoughtfully. This shift is a game changer because it reduces the emotional chaos and helps you stay centered. Building self-respect is a key piece of this puzzle. Often, when people are trapped in narcissistic relationships, their confidence and sense of worth take a huge hit. They start to believe the distorted messages the narcissist sends, that they're not good enough, they're the problem, or they don't deserve better. But those lies are just that, lies. Reclaiming your self-respect means reminding yourself daily that you deserve kindness, honesty, and respect. It means treating yourself with compassion and surrounding yourself with people who genuinely uplift you. This might take time and support from friends, family, or even professionals, but it's absolutely worth it. As you strengthen your boundaries and self-worth, you create the space needed to break free and heal. Ending or limiting contact with a narcissist can be incredibly difficult, especially if they are a family member, coworker, or someone you see regularly. But protecting your well-being often requires taking that step. This might mean going no contact completely, or setting strict limits on when and how you interact with them. The goal is to minimize their influence and stop the cycle of emotional harm. Breaking free also involves recognizing that healing is a journey. It's not about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt, but about learning from the experience and growing stronger. You might find yourself grieving the relationship you thought you had or struggling with lingering doubts. That's normal and okay. What matters is that you keep moving forward with kindness toward yourself. Empower yourself by finding healthy outlets for your emotions, whether it's journaling, therapy, creative hobbies, or spending time in nature. Seek out positive relationships that remind you of your value and bring joy rather than stress. Healing is also about rebuilding your identity beyond the narcissist's shadow. You are more than the pain you endured. You have strengths, passions, and dreams that deserve attention and nurturing. It's also helpful to educate yourself about narcissistic behavior and toxic relationships. Knowledge is power. Understanding why narcissists act the way they do, and how their actions affect you, can demystify your experience and reduce feelings of isolation or self-blame.